What's up, Guardians? If you were like me at the start of this expansion, we were all out there using third iteration and having a great time playing Mythic with a primary that could deal some damage. But there was one exotic that you got for completing the campaign, and that is a sibling to Graviton Lance, Graviton Spike. Graviton Spike is a hand cannon, and we haven't had an exotic hand cannon in quite a while, so it's nice to get another one. It is a 150 RPM arc hand cannon. This is the only other 150 other than Sunshot. And this also has the ability for you to hold R to switch it over to a stasis mode that shoots at 95 RPM and does a lot more damage per shot. While you are shooting this thing, every kill or headshot will give you a charge up to 3 charges to overcharge the mode that you're not using. And when you switch over, getting kills or headshots while that buff is active will have a bonus effect. If you're on arc when you're having the bonuses, you will get a lightning strike that does a bunch more damage. And if you're on stasis, you'll get a small explosion that does a bit more damage and also spawn a couple of crystals. The crystals are a little bit far away, so breaking them is not very convenient, but they do add some extra damage and some extra crowd control. If you're shooting it into a group, you'll at least get some freezes off, which can help you out in a pinch. There are currently 4 catalysts available for this thing. One of them is Rapid Hit, one is Subsistence, and one is Transcendent Moment, which is the new perk that when you get a kill based on the element of the weapon, and you'll get a different benefit like to your passive stats. So more of a PvP thing than a PvE thing. Not something I'm going to really dive into right now because this is more of a PvE review. And then finally, the 4th catalyst is the one that I have on, which is Temporal Alignment Refit. Now, this lets you get bonus damage after you've hit 3 headshots or gotten 3 kills with both modes. So if you charge up arc and then you go into the arc and then you charge up your stasis, as soon as your stasis is charged, this will proc and it will give you 16 seconds of a 20% damage buff. This is actually pretty strong because it's not lacking in its DPS most of the time. So having a 20% bonus is pretty strong and it's pretty reliable to proc because you just need to hit headshots. That said, the main downside of this thing is needing to hit headshots or get kills to charge it up. You can put in work with this, and I think it will be a fun thing to use. I think it could use a little bit of tweaks here and there to make it a little more usable in the future. But for now, I think it's pretty fun to use. It's got the new gear bonus. So let's go ahead and really quickly talk about damage numbers. And I am going to show you a spreadsheet for this. I did test every firing mode for this. I got rid of the new gear bonus, and then I re-added it back in, which is what you'll see on the chart. And I also tested Sunshot as well as Unloved, which is the 2-round burst legendary hand cannon that is Strand, just for comparison's sake. So looking at this sheet, we have the arc mode, we have the stasis mode, we have swapping between modes, and then we have Unloved and Sunshot. Now, at first glance, if you are using this when it's new gear and you're shooting miners with it for that exotic gear bonus, you are going to be doing the most damage out of any of the other hand cannons we have listed here. You'd be doing about 417 damage every headshot with the stasis mode, doing up to 1030 DPS against red bars. And if you overcharge that, it goes up slightly to 1107. The stasis charge is much less of a bonus because you need to rely on crystals to get some extra damage. They don't always shatter when you need them to, or they're just too far away, so you're not going to see a whole bunch extra there. But if you're looking at the arc mode headshot bonus, going from 221 per hit and 864 DPS to 328 per hit up to 1280 DPS. So the overcharge mode on the arc shot is much better than the overcharge mode on the stasis shot, but base damage wise, the arc shot hits for about half the damage of the stasis shot, and the stasis one does do more DPS at base. So if you are just trying to mag dump this thing at a shank or at something that you can't headshot for some reason, definitely be using it in the stasis mode. That does way more damage. Now, accounting for that, even if you are just using this thing to get kills or killing ads with it, the regular arc shot headshot, if you aren't getting the overcharges, does about the same damage as Sunshot. But the AoE on this thing is much less effective at clearing out ads than Sunshot is. Without the new gear bonus, even doing your swaps back and forth to maintain the perfect uptime on all 3 of your shots, assuming you don't miss or hit a body shot, where you don't do the swap fast enough, you are just 100 damage ahead of Sunshot per second. Which, well, yeah, it's decent and it adds up. You're missing out on so much AoE that Sunshot would be giving you, and not just to mention, Sunshot does work with solar subclasses. You get Scorch, you can apply 3.0 effects. While this thing is being two elements, requiring you to swap back and forth, doubling up on mods, you need to have a stasis siphon and an arc siphon. So this DPS is pretty good under a controlled circumstance, but Sunshot can hit this pretty easily at all times. You just have to be hitting headshots. Whereas this needs to be hitting headshots, hitting the swaps, making sure you don't miss, because Sunshot, even if you hit a body shot, is doing good damage. But if you're using this and you hit a body shot, not only are you not getting the damage for the headshot, if you swap, you lose your stack. This is not including the 20% buff from Temporal. So if you are getting Temporal up, this does get even better, right? But I think you'll find the higher you go into endgame, the more shields you're going to run into, and the more you will feel like you would just have Sunshot on instead, and you clear out all the ads, and then you can focus with something else to kill the things without crits. So numerically, this is a very good gun. It is just very clunky to use. And for reference, Unloved is on here, and if you didn't have the exotic bonus against miners, Unloved would do more damage than both of these other weapons. The only reason I didn't want to pull ahead is because they have the exotic bonus, they have new gear, but as soon as you start shooting a major or something, Unloved is going to be doing just about as much damage as both of these other ones. So with that bonus to miners, you really want to be able to clear ads efficiently, and I just think this thing doesn't pack ad clear as well as it probably should. So at the end of the day, how are we feeling about Graviton Spike? Honestly, I think Graviton can put out numbers. It is good with honing. It has a unique play style, but there's no subclass synergy other than the stasis crystals, which you can maybe build into with Titan, or if you're on Warlock and I manage to free something, that'll help build in a little bit more or get you some shards. But it's not really reliable to get that up. You're relying on hitting the headshots or getting the kills. If you're in a situation where you aren't able to proc that, or you're not able to get the kills to proc it after you overcharge the mode, then you don't really have much subclass synergy. So for my main purposes, I'm going to say this doesn't really have any subclass synergy. It's a lot clunkier to use than other exotic primaries. It's got a portion of the ad clear and a portion of the single target damage of some of the other weapons. It's got a rhythm-based game plan, but it falls apart as soon as you miss a crit and you're swapping anyways, because you're assuming you're going to hit the crit because you're aiming at the head, but sometimes the aim assist doesn't give it to you. The shot doesn't kill when you expected it to. And if you swap while you are not charged all the way, you lose your progress to your next bar, so you just have to start over from the beginning. And that really throws a wrench in your damage over time. But unfortunately, it doesn't really create a unique niche for its space in the slot. But that said, it is good for prismatic transcendence. It builds up both sides pretty reliably as long as you're hitting those headshots. And even if you aren't, switching between the modes is just a way to make sure you have both of those covered. If you're using a kinetic special, that gives you freedom to just keep using your primary in more cases. However, it is a drain on your mod slots. It requires you to have multiple to always have Bennett's, because when it's in stasis mode, you need stasis mods for it to work. And when it's in arc mode, you need arc mods. And if you're not like building your special kit around having a stasis weapon as well, then you start to struggle to have special weapon mods and these mods for your primary and mods for your heavy. So if you're running things like Envious Arsenal and Elemental Honing, you aren't going to be able to really build into the arc stasis on this thing, as well as the strand in your other slot and the solar in your heavy and the void in your subclass, and really dive into getting the mods to give you ammo regen, make sure you're making enough orbs. So you're going to have a little bit of a struggle if you're swapping modes constantly, trying to keep a surge up for both modes. But if you are just focused on, say, an arc or just a stasis build, and you can squeeze that in, then maybe it's not as bad. But if you're doing like a melee build and you're not going to be able to focus on either mode as much, you're looking for hands-on, you're looking for firepowers, and you're looking for heavy-handeds, you start to lose even more of your uptime on your special shots and even more uptime on your orb generation with this weapon when you have to swap back and forth, and now you're not on harmonic and you're draining even more energy for your mods. So it is very mod hungry. There is a place where you can use this thing with Mask of Bacchus or probably Lucky Pants or Eternal Warrior on Titan, and I think those are like okay use cases. Like you can probably build into those and it'll feel pretty decent, but it just is a lot of commitment for a weapon that thrives against enemies that are easy to crit, things like Hive, Cabal, and Dread, who all have crit spots. There's shields, but not too many shields. But it struggles more into enemies without crit spots. Things with hidden crits or things with shields. We're talking like Vex or Fallen Shanks and the Servitors and the Briggs. And if they're not looking at you, you can't crit them at all. And they'll try to protect their crit spots. This weapon falls off a cliff when you're fighting those enemies because you'll just randomly not hit a crit when you expected to, and then you swapped and you lose your buffs. So if you're not one-shotting them in easier content and you're dumping multiple shots, it just feels worse to use. But I think if you are going to use this, you should not be afraid to lay into an enemy with a stasis mode and manually reload it instead of swapping. I think if you're focusing on swapping, it's a bit of a faux pas. You want to be using that stasis mode to get kills when you can, because it's a lot easier to charge that than it is to charge with the arc side. The stasis side just does more DPS in neutral, and when you overcharge it, the arc side is a little better. So if you have the option, focus on using stasis and swapping to the arc. You have to get a kill or headshots with the arc to proc it, but then at least you're only going for those 3 shots, and if you do get it, you can swap back to the stasis and keep the buff up. And if not, just go back to stasis and just lay into targets. I think this is more of a stasis hand cannon than an arc hand cannon, because the stasis mode just hits so much harder. If it wasn't based on holding R to swap sides and then taking the time to do the animation, maybe this would be a lot easier to use. Like if this was a ADS for arc mode, hip fire for stasis mode kind of weapon, that would probably feel a lot better, and you probably wouldn't run into so many issues with hitting the headshots and missing the headshots and hitting body shots and then not getting a kill shot. But unfortunately, this is a hold R weapon. You have to go through the little animation, so it is going to eat time, and if you aren't doing it optimally, it's going to feel weird. But I think you have to get used to committing to one mode and just reloading the thing. It feels bad to reload this thing because you want to be doing the swap. Don't focus on that. Just do it when it's ready. The overcharge damage boost with the catalyst is good, but you have like 17 seconds to do it. You have quite a while to charge up both sides. It's not a race. You can do it in neutral. Once you get the shields gone and you're able to headshot everything, you can go ahead and build it back up. But if you're shooting something with shields, you might as well just use the stasis mode, and it's probably going to do better, unless it's an arc shield specifically. When we get into match game, it's going to be even more rough, but I don't know, you can make it work. Let's be honest. If you need a primary that's going to kill ads, you want to use Kvostov or Sunshot or Graviton Lance or Necrochasm. If you want a primary that can kill ads and majors and mini bosses and bosses, you want to use Outbreak or Taraba or Barodiad or Third Iteration. All of these are good at killing ads. They don't rely on crits, and they can kill majors as well as or better than this thing. If you do want something that's in between, but it has a lot of character, and you're okay with having some reduced efficiency against shields and non-crittable enemies, this is still a fun pick. It's not like this weapon is awful. This is probably like a solid 7 or 8 out of 10 kind of exotic, right? And there are things that are worse than this that people still use. Like, Sweet Business is not the greatest thing in the game. Sweet Business will do fine in endgame content if you commit to it and you build around it. So I'm not saying you can't do that and that this won't do anything for you. It's just if you want to use an exotic primary, you usually want a primary that's either going to delete all the ads in an area, or it will delete ads in the area at a slightly reduced rate and delete majors at a greatly increased rate. And this doesn't really do either. It's okay at ad clear. It's okay at major damage. So it's okay. I hope you don't find that to be a scathing review. I hope some of you are enjoying this thing. And if you have any like really interesting builds for this, definitely drop it down below. Let us know what you're using so we can go ahead and try it. But we're looking for stuff that's going to be working in like the Mythic campaign. We're talking Grandmasters and later on. So I want to see stuff that is going to be really endgame viable for this, because this thing is really cool. I love having another Graviton weapon in the game. Having a new exotic hand cannon is always a pleasure. I love exotic hand cannons. So if we don't have anything brewing for this, no one has any really great builds with this thing, I would love to see either some of those come up or maybe some tweaks coming from Bungie just to give this thing a little more juice so it is able to compete in endgame. I think it needs that. I think it deserves that. It's really cool. I want it to compete with Graviton Lance. And I think, honestly, Bungie loves exotic hand cannon, so at some point, this thing will get tuned up. I am absolutely sure of it. Third Iteration hit really hard, and I think Third Iteration is still the best exotic out of this expansion. But all of that said, I hope you guys enjoyed this. This is my first exotic weapon review, so if you thought it did something weird, let me know. If there's some more stuff that you would have liked to have heard, let me know where I could tweak this and make it a bit more interesting or engaging. And I will see you all again very, very soon.